Thank you, sir. Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, as sir rightly introduced some of the importance of the library Matplotlib to you, visualization is very important as we will get to see now. Okay, we'll start using it very. It's used very heavily in machine learning to explore the data to explore relationships between the attributes of the data. Okay. So before we go to Matplotlib, I'll just very quickly recap something I gave as an assignment that was I thought is very important to cover here. So three-dimensional arrays, right? So I saw people could do the first question, but this one is a little tricky, and you can explore this also parallelly and after the class as well. But I'll just cover what is how you access elements inside a three-dimensional array. Okay, so you see, we use NumPy dot array function for creating arrays of multiple dimensions. So uh, as I mentioned in the class, the if you see three opening brackets when you are defining an array, you can see that you can say it is a three-dimensional array. Okay, because we saw two-dimensional array had two brackets. Okay, so now this simple basic identification. Okay, you don't need to know much about it. So if you see three brackets at the start, it should be a three-dimensional array. So how it is different is, let me just first run this and show you. So before running anything, you have to import the library. Okay. So we saw two-dimensional arrays, right? So now this three-dimensional array contains two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so that's how the third dimension is getting added. You can visualize it as a 3D cube where it has a number of two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so now this three-dimensional array as a whole has these two-dimensional arrays which are 3 by 3, 3 rows, 3 columns. Okay, so how they are defined? They each of this array is like this. This is one array. Okay, a 3 by 3 array, and this one is one array. Okay, so now this three-dimensional array as a whole is a combination of these two arrays, right? So how do we access elements from these? We try to first select what will be our main array. Okay, selecting the main array is the first index. So this one is the first index where we select our main array. So there are two main arrays here, as you can see. This is one main array, 3 by 3, and the this one is also one array. So if I say as there are only two main arrays, I can say 0 or 1 here. So if I say 1, I'm referring to this one, right? If I say 0, I'm referring to this one. So after the comma, I can see. So if I say 1, I'm referring to this 3 by 3 array, two-dimensional array. Okay. So I'm saying 1. So let's focus here in this area, and then I'm saying 1 again as a middle. So I'm now in this main array uh, we have we have three one-dimensional arrays, right? So I'm saying 1 means this is the zeroth element index. This is the first one. And this is the second one, right? So I'm referring to this particular one-dimensional component of that huge array, right? So and then I'm saying the lastly as 2, right? So the last index is 2. So inside this one now, I'm saying this is 0, this is 1, and 7 is 2, right? So this is how I access this element 7 inside this three-dimensional array. So if I run this, I should get 7 as an answer. Okay. So this is a basic kind of how you can access elements in a three-dimensional array. So can you quickly confirm that you have understood by just send me these three indexes to how you can access this element too. You can send me these three indexes to how to access this element too. In the chat box, you can do that. So that will confirm that you have understood. Or if there are any questions, you can ask that too. Quick activity. How do I access this too now? Please send in your answers. Take 1 or 2 minutes. So first I'll access this main element, right? So how do I do that? Has anybody got it? Try to print it yourself. Try to change these three elements to print this element, to print two here as an output. You should get two. Uh, right, Nandu. It should be 0, 0, 1, right? So 0 will be the first main array, and one more 0 for because this is the first one-dimensional array 0. This is second 1, and this is the last one third. So one more 0 for selecting this component, and then we have uh, we write one more time for this element 2, because this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2 again. So right, if you print this, you'll get the result as 2. So fine, I think you have understood this. So whoever had doubts in this, I think they are clarified now. You can try parallelly, and if you have any doubts in this, you can ask us. Okay. So fine. With that, we will move on to Matplotlib. As I told, this is a very important library because visualizations help us uh, in exploration of data, in identifying relationships between attributes, right? And why exploration is important, because it then leads us to uh, the next steps in creating our algorithm. So based on the relationship, we select a particular algorithm, and how we do that, we will see one of those algorithms today. So what is essential for that algorithm to be selected, we can see that relationship using visualizations, right? So selection of an algorithm, of a machine learning algorithms, directly depends on the relationship between some of the attributes you have in the data. Okay, so this is exploring relationships between attributes using visualizations, using some of these uh, tools we will see today is also called exploratory data analysis. It's called EDA, right? It is one of the first steps you do uh, to select or to establish certain relationships in your data, to identify them, and to select a particular machine learning algorithm which is suited for that kind of data, okay, which is suited for that kind of relationship between its attribute. Okay, so that is how EDA is done, and EDA is again one of the first steps you do in while you build a machine learning model. Okay, and you do that first step using like we saw, checking the null values, how many null values are there in the data. Um, they should be negated, they should be removed. So because some of the algorithms, some of the models we use in machine learning do not accept or, or can give you wrong results if you have null values in your data. Okay, so if you have incorrect values or null values in your data, you can get incorrect results from your machine learning model. Okay, so uh, identifying that aspect of the data, and cleaning the data is also part of EDA. It's part of exploration, and it comes as one of the first steps um for for selecting your machine learning model and implementing machine learning algorithm. Okay, so we'll see Matplotlib library today. So Matplotlib, as we when we introduced libraries to you, we said it's a it's a collection of modules. So one of those modules, as you can see, when we import Matplotlib, we say import PyPlot as well. So we say from Matplotlib import PyPlot. Okay, so PyPlot is one of those modules. Okay, and we give it as an alias name as PLT so that it is easier to use. So we are importing Matplotlib's module PyPlot. So remember, libraries have many modules. One of those modules is PyPlot, and we are importing it as a name as PLT. Okay, so we will use, so now that PyPlot is used to create uh, physical structures, to create figures, to add axes, to show different visualizations. So all these functions are present in this module PyPlot. Okay, we will see them. No need to worry now. So similarly, I'm importing the other libraries NumPy and Pandas as NP and PD respectively. Okay, so first we will look at histogram. All right. So anybody knows what histogram is, or where it is used? Uh, any idea on that? What do you feel when you will get uh, when you see a histogram, or what it should be? You can answer in the chat box. Anybody who knows about histogram, or I can say frequency distribution. Uh, it's like a graph, you're right, Vishnu, but what exactly? Harishri, it's not. It's a bar graph, but I'm trying to understand what is in the y-axis. I gave a hint also. So what is in the y-axis is generally for a histogram is frequency, right? So it is basically a frequency distribution. Right. So yes, Vishnu, it has ranges. Yes, and somebody said continuous data as well. So that is correct. So ranges means you will have basically classes. So that's how you divide continuous data, right? So if you want to visualize a data which is continuous, it can have values from in decimals as well. So suppose you have values like 10.23, 11.34, something like that, and so it becomes very difficult to visualize that in a bar graph, if you say. And if you want to see how many times each value has come in a data, how many time it has repeated, basically that's when you use histogram also, right? It's a frequency distribution. Okay, so remember that histogram is a frequency distribution. So you can see how many times each or a class of a range of numbers have repeated in data. Okay, so somebody said continuous data, so that is correct. You for if you try to plot continuous data, for example, if you have um a big range of data, you want to show it in the x axis, right? So it will be a very clunky kind of a visual, right? If you Because it will have many dots and many data points, right? So what you do is you define classes then. So so 0 to 10 is a class, 10 to 20 is a class. So you divide classes based on the class interval, right? So if there are values from between 0 to 100, you can have 10 classes like 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, right? That makes the visual very easy, right? So whatever values are between 0 to 10, uh, they can be plotted on the y-axis. I mean, you can simply have a bar graph which can show you how many values are there between 0 to 10. So if it's a histogram, it will show you on the if x-axis is 0 to 10, on the y-axis you will have how many values were there between 0 to 10, right? And then how many values between 10 to 20, how many between 20 to 30. So it's a frequency distribution, number of values you have for each class, right? So that's basic definition of histogram. Yeah, right. So it can somebody told it is a bar graph. Yeah, it is bar, but you can have line also, but you can have a step kind of a thing also, where which I have defined here. We can change it to bar as well. So it is very familiar and popular in the bar format. So right, you can visualize continuous data. You can define classes, and then that's how you uh, you basically see histogram, right? It's a frequency distribution. The number of times uh, values in one class have been repeated. Okay. So with that, we will go to the code. Okay. So one thing I forgot was that matplotlib is used for is basically used for data which is existing in arrays or in the list format. Okay. So data which is in the form of arrays or lists can be visualized using matplotlib. Okay. So here is an example again. So now first what plt.figure will do is it will basically create a blank space for you to draw out your visualization. It just creates blank space. Okay. So that is what the figure function will do, right? So we can see the parameters what come inside later. So figure function, just remember, it will create you that blank space where you can use your visualization into where you can create your chart. So this is one of the first steps you do. Plt.figure. Remember, plt is pyplot dot figure when you actually are going to use matplotlib, right? Now I'm simply creating an array using np.array. Now this array is say these are marks of students, okay, right? So these number of marks for these number of students, right? So simple array. Now we'll see this array how it looks in the histogram. So the next thing you actually do is you create an axis on your figure. Okay. So whatever you gave as an object to call this function figure, I used fig. You use the same object here to create axis. Okay. So you say figure fig dot add axis. Okay, and these elements I'll explain. So add axis basically then adds horizontal and vertical axis on your figure. Okay. So now these first two are basically positional elements. You can say these are L, B, W, H going from left to right. So this L is the left position. This is the bottom position. So I'm not worried about it now because I'm using only one visualization per this block of code, right? So that's why I'm giving it a 0, 0 because there is no chart which will come above this because it's a separate independent block. So you need not worry about these two elements, but these two are important because these are WH, width and height of the axis. Okay, so for now they're given as 1 and 1. Don't worry about the units there. I think it is in inches. You can cross check it, but I think if you make it 2 or 3, the axis uh, length and width and height will increase. So if you want to increase the size of your chart, you can fiddle around with these parameters, especially these two. Okay. So right, these are basically structural elements. These two will create the structure for you. One to create a space and one to add axis for creating the axis. Okay, horizontal and vertical y-axis and x-axis. Then you use the same object you created for creating axis to call the function dot hist. So it will create histogram for you dot hist function, right? And as the first element, I'm passing the array which I want to visualize, right? So I'm passing this array marks of students x, comma, and then I'm giving the bins. Now bins are the class intervals. Okay, so I'm starting with 0, then and then 0 to 25 will be my first class, 25 to 50 will be my second class, 50 to 75 will be my third class, and 75 to 100 will be the last class. So that's how I'm dividing these um, this data into classes, right? So you will see when it comes out. So hist type again is a histogram type. This can be I'm using it as a step for now. I'll change it to bar because it is more popular and familiar, right? So you can use step or bar here, okay, as his type. Now I'm giving a title for my histogram. So I can use it. I'm use the set underscore title function to give my title inside this pair of parentheses. I'm saying as marks histogram, right? And then for the x-axis, I'm giving the labels. So what now remember whatever the bins you're using here should be same as the labels you're using. So as the first, this will appear on your graph in your chart. You will see these labels, and these bins will be inside. Will be used internally to create the classes, right? So these two should be same. Whatever you say here in xticks, it will appear on the chart. Okay. Similarly, then I'm using the set underscore x label x on the x-axis. I will have total marks of students, right? And as I told on the y-axis, set underscore y label, I'm giving the y label as number of students. So I told this is frequency distribution. So y-axis will always have number of repetitions or the number of occurrences uh, of, of data elements within a class, right? And finally, we finish it off with plt.show, right? Plt.show basically will print. It's kind of it's like a print statement. It will print your chart on the screen. Okay, so this is very important. You should finish your with this. So this is where you will get the print of your chart. So if you run this, right? So again, same. You the X tick, whatever I gave as the X labels, 0 to 25, 25 to 50 are the classes, 50 to 75 and 75 to 100, right? So 0 to 25, how many elements are there? You can see there is, I think, this 21 and 25 will be considered in the next class, right? So that's why you see 0 to 25 you have only you say the number of students is only as one. The 25 will be you can see this in the next class, right? 25, the first class left side of the class is inclusive, the right side is not. Okay, so it is not 0 to 25 which is equal to 25. You will get elements till 24 here. Okay, so from 25 to 50, you will get you will have six values between 25 to 50. So that's where you see that spike for the class 25 to 50 and so on. You have one between uh, 50 to 75, right? Which is this value 65, right? Between 50 to 75 and between 75 to 100, you have 84, 87, right? And 78. Okay, three. So so it's showing us three, right? So are there any doubts here? How were you able to understand the histogram?
What it was?
Hello, can you please confirm on the chat box that you understood, or if you have doubts, you can ask. So if I want to increase the width or height of my of use, I can change these values. So is this clear, or are there any doubts? Please confirm in the chat box. Okay. So we will move to the next important visualization, which is scatter plot. Now, scatter plot is very important. Okay, so why it is important is the first machine learning algorithm we are going to use is linear regression. And
Ada? Okay.
hello, is somebody unmuted? I request to please go on mute. So fine, we will see scatter plot now. Uh, so what scatter plot is used is for basically if you want to know correlation between two attributes. Okay, so suppose uh, you have data for sales and for advertising, right? So what I have here is sales and advertising data in this list format. So this can be yearly or monthly data. You don't need to be worried about that. But what is important uh, is what is the relationship which exists between uh, these two attributes, or these two columns, or I can say these two kinds of data, right? So what should happen generally is, if you say this is a company's advertising spend, so the more company spends on advertisement, the more sales should increase, right? So this kind of relationship is called positive correlation. So as you keep increasing, you can see I'm going on increasing the advertising spend, all right, and my sales are increasing as well, right? So this is called positive correlation. So these two attributes are, I can say, positively correlated. Okay, so this is what is an ideal, what you call, a scenario. It may not happen in the real life, but this is what is expected, right? So we get to know, uh, we get to understand correlation between different attributes of a data using the scatter plot. Okay, so we will see how that works, but remember that scatter plot is used to identify the kind of correlation we have between two attributes of data, or two kinds of data. Here we have sales data and advertising data in the list format, right? So ideally they should be positively correlated. As you go on increasing the advertising, the sales should increase as per the increase in advertising. So this is the basic concept for correlation. Now, what is also important to see here is this relation is like linear in nature, right? So the first machine learning model we are going to use today is linear regression, and finding out if uh, the elements are positively correlated is one of the aspects you use to see if you can apply the linear regression model on this type of data. Okay, so as I said, selection of an algorithm or a machine learning model is also based on the type of data. So you can only apply a linear regression uh, or linear regression module or algorithm when you have uh, positive correlation between data, right? Uh, so like you see here, sales and advertisement are positively correlated, right? So there should be some kind of correlation uh, between the data, and it should be linear in nature when you go for a linear regression model. Okay, so first we will this is again I'm just adding axis, and I'm using this dot scatter function to uh, to see this relationship between sales and advertisement. So by the way, this is also called, if you use two attributes and you want to establish a relationship between them, you can call it as bivariate analysis. Okay, so I'm using sales and advertising here. So I'm doing a bivariate analysis using the scatter plot. Now, scatter plot is heavily used for one of the tools for bivariate analysis. Now, as there are two variables in picture here, sales and advertising, this is called bivariate analysis. So now I'm giving the scatter plot divide.scatter will print that, will this function will plot the scatter plot for me, and then x label. So whatever you uh, uh, assign first will be given as the x label. Okay, so sales is my x label and advertising is y label. Right. So you can see what happens here is, as you can see, you can notice the data and you can feel if it is positively correlated or not, right? as i'm increasing as I'm increasing the advertising spend on the scales are also increasing positively, or they are positively correlated, I can say, right? So whenever data is kind of positively correlated, you will be able to visualize something like that. So these individual elements are present as dots. So you can see the first x-axis element, which is sales, is 10,000, and the advertising, which is on the y-axis, is 5,000, right? So this is the first element, and that's how these other points are plotted. So if the data is positively correlated, imagine something like a linear line going through, or going uh, from this point to this point. You can imagine a line going diagonally like this, right? And uh, if your values are positively correlated, you will see these dots, as you can see now, are very close to this line. You can imagine from this, right? So that is one an example of, that is how you can visualize that if your attributes are positively correlated or not, right? So here you can see there is positive correlation as the lines, as the points are closer to this imaginary line I can draw from this point to this point, right? So now, if I want to give you example of uh, there is no correlation existing, something like that. So let's say the sales are not increasing uh, as as expected because of the advertising spend or the increasing advertising spend, and I'll say some random values like there is not much what you call impact of spend on advertising on the sales. So if I say something like this, so and I run this, so now you see as the linear relationship it was previously, now it is very less linear, right? So there is lesser correlation, I can say, between advertising and sales, because I'm increasing advertising, like I increased from 5,000 to 6,000, but the increase in sales was lesser than before, right? Previously, it was going from 10,000 to 30,000 or 35,000. Now it is just 5,000 increase. And I'm increasing for the next year, maybe I'm increasing from 6,000 to 7,500. That is actually going down, right? And then they are going up, but not by that margin or that proportion by which it was happening before. And then again, it is going down. So you can see there's, if you now imagine again the same line, you will see some of the points are going far away from the line. So I can say there is lesser correlation between sales and advertising for this particular data, right? So similarly, you can imagine totally three kind of scenarios. So one where there is positive correlation, one whereas there is lesser correlation, or sometimes you can say if their values are too far and uh, from the linear relationship or the linear line we are expecting, it is no correlation. And sometimes when you increase advertising but the sales are, they keep on decreasing, right? So that is called a negative correlation. Okay, so correlation value again, Carl Pearson, statistically speaking, Carl Pearson's coefficient we use. So we have correlation coefficient values from -1 to 1. Okay, so -1 is negative correlation, 0 is no correlation, and if the value is 1, then it means it is perfect correlation. So values can be between 0 and 1 as well. So if there is strong correlation, suppose values from 0.8 and on to 1, 1 is perfect correlation, means you will have points very near, or you can say exactly on the line. Okay, so that is perfect linear correlation. So either that or zero point 0.8 is also said to be a good correlation value, right? So this is how correlation, you can visualize correlation using scatter plot. Okay, so this is again a very important component when we go for linear regression as well. So if there are any doubts, you should ask here, because this is an important concept. If you understand this well, linear regression can be a very smooth concept for you. So are there any doubts here?
Any questions, class? Have you understood so far whatever that has been discussed? So parallelly, I'm sharing some links in your WhatsApp group also on Scatterplot, Histogram. And there is a site, Math is Fun, which I generally refer to learn anything about probability, statistics, and the charts and stuff. So please check that website. You can learn a lot from that particular website. It's given in very simple terms, just like we are taught during the school. So check that website. Any questions? No response also this time. Any questions? Yeah, thanks Vishnu for a quick response. Others? Thank you, Daniel. Vigneshwari, yes, thank you. Thank you, Vajid. Anisha, yes, I think we can proceed, Kaushal, I guess.
Yeah, fine, fine, sir. Thank you, everyone. So actually, this should be other way around. I'm sorry for this. The you should be actually having advertising here on x-axis and sales here on the y-axis. So you will learn the concept of dependent and independent variable soon. So what I'm trying to do is basically the dependent variables should be on the y-axis. Okay. So how it is you can see and generally also sales are dependent on advertising, right? So conceptually, what what's what you can also think of a practical concept. Sales are always dependent on advertising, right? So advertising hence it becomes your independent variable, and sales is your dependent variable. So dependent variable will come on the y-axis always. So and in linear regression, we always try to predict using our model. We predict the dependent variable using the independent variable. Okay, so we in linear regression, remember we once we establish this relationship that they are kind of they have strong correlation, then we go for linear regression and we say that the we try to predict the the dependent variable using the independent variable. Okay, all right. So you will for now just think about correlation, nothing else. The independent dependent variable thing will come afterwards. Okay, so we move to the box plot. After that important plot of the scatter plot, we so box plot is again one more important visualization. Now this can be univariate. Okay, so you can visualize using only one variable. So now in the previous one it was bivariate. You should have both sales and advertising data for visualizing the scatter plot. But this one you can do it with one variable also. Okay, so if you want to use box plot, it can come under univariate analysis as well. So univariate is when you can use even one variable to visualize the distribution of data. So this is box plot is used to see or visualize distribution of data. Okay, so how it does that, we will see that. So now must like previously I have the same marks data here. Okay, in the form of a list, and then I'm using the figure function to create my blank space, adding axis as before, and then I'm using this ax.boxplot, okay, of and I'm passing this marks, okay. So I'm using this function dot boxplot and I'm passing the list marks to to create the box plot. If I remove this box also, I think it should work. Okay, so right. So how and when we use box plot is when uh, you want to see the distribution of data, and you want to see if there are any outliers. Now I'll explain out what are outliers. So first of all, we will see what box plot is structurally, right? So you see this rectangular box is basically it has three elements. So one this line, this line is basically 25 percentile of the data. Okay, so it divides basically the data into four quarters. Now this is the 25 percentile line. This is the median. Okay, that is the 50 percentile, right, of the data, and this is the 75 percentile. Okay. And about these values, these are called min and max. But how you calculate this is, I will give you a formula. So if this value, that is the 25 percentile, and how do you arrive at that? I'll tell you that also. So if you arrange, so how do you arrive at the quartile values? Is you arrange this list you have, the data you have, into ascending order, and then you see, oh, what is the 25 percentile, right? So based on the position, it will be because if uh, you have sort them in the increasing order, you will get the median at exactly the 50 percentile, right? So this is basically the median which you get at the 50 percentile value. So it is similar to what how like CAT uses for distributing percentiles, right? So if there is, so for 25 percentile, there are 25% of values which are lesser than this value, right? Similarly, 50 percentile is exactly in between. 50% values are more than this, and 50% are less. And then this is 75 percentile. This box ending, right? This value is, if you say the 25 percentile value as Q1, and this as Q3. Okay, so interquartile range is calculated as Q3 minus Q1. Okay, uh, and then this value, which is the maximum, is actually calculated as Q3 plus 1.5 times into interquartile range, or IQR. Okay, if I simply put uh, IQR is Q3 minus Q1, and then the last line in the box plot, the max, if I say it as max, is equal to Q3 plus 1.5 times into the interquartile range. So and the minimum value, which is this line, which is covered by the box plot, is given by is given as Q1 minus 1.5 into interquartile range, or IQR. IQR is Q3 minus Q1, right? So this value is Q1 and this value is Q3. Okay, so you can calculate max and min like that. So how max and min is important in a distribution is by, you see that circle there, uh, which is outside the max value, right? Now max is Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR. Now this circular value is called an outlier. Okay, of the distribution, it is a value which stands out, or it is too large for this distribution, right? So you can guess from these values, actually 145 is that outlier, right? Right. So for like that, you can have many outliers in your data, and that is why this box plot is important. You can identify your outliers in your data using the box plot. So now box plots and how outliers are important is, I told you that this outliers generally skew your data, right? So if you have more outliers, your data is skewed to one direction. Okay, so for some of the algorithms, it is not good to have outliers. So you can identify outliers using box plot, and you can remove outliers. We will discuss some of the techniques which how you can remove the outliers in your data. Okay, so this is how box plot is used to see distribution of your data, right? What is your median, and what are the quartile values and if there are any outliers like this. Okay, so you can if I make this a smaller value like something like 45, it will not show me that outlier, right? And if you see, the median has also come down uh, because one values is reduced drastically. Okay, so any doubts in this section for the box plot, where it is used, uh, how it, why it is important? It's basically used to see distribution of data in your attributes to check for outliers. So any values which are out of this max and min, outside this, or you can say less than min, are also are outliers. So are there any questions here? You can post a confirmation like you understood. We can go to the next charts. So can we proceed, guys?
Hello, hi, I'm Manivan here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm able to understand this box plot, but that IQR, I
Yeah,
really missed on the example. Is it possible? Can you explain?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you see, if Q3 is your 75% value, right? 75 percentile, and Q1 is
Okay.
your 25 percentile. So IQR is just the difference between these two. So Q3 minus Q1 will give you the IQR. Okay. So which is again represented by this box. So here this line is 25 percentile. This is 75 percentile. So this box basically represents the IQR. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Similarly, max and min are also what you call calculations. It is defined by what a natural distribution should have. So outside these max value, which is you can see through this line, is an outlier actually. Okay, so
Thanks.
thank you. So we can move on to the next chart, which is the pie chart. So, so before going to pie chart, has anybody heard of the pie charts before? Where are they? When are they used? Any examples? You can tell them in the chat box where you see pie charts have been used. You can post them in the chat box. You might have encountered them while using Excel or something. Yeah, wagon wheel is a good example, Vishnu. Yeah, that's a practical example for pie chart. Yeah, so batsman has scored how many, what percentage of runs. So the cricket field itself looks like a pie, right? So very easy to visualize. So in what areas he has scored runs, basically becomes a pie chart for you. So it is the pie then is divided into sections. So whenever you have sections in your data or categorical data, which you want to know the percentage of distribution in those sections, you can use pie charts, right? So the the offside, percentage of runs scored behind the wicket keeper, or yes, towards the leg side, right? Yes, correct, Harishi. So uh, we give numerical percentage, yeah, for years each section, right? So pie charts for count of servers used in different projects, yeah, yeah, yes, you can use that also. Uh, Count or percentage. Uh, it is preferable for to use pie charts for percentages, but visually it looks good, because if you use the counts, that also can work, but you can use the, other graphs also for that. So try to think other ways also, but if you use percentages and the sections, the areas of each of the section, the size of each of the section itself is like gives you that visual to how much, for example, in how much product category, how much sales has happened, right? So, so as I told, product category is or can be a section, so which you can use to divide your pies, your section, your slices of your pies, right? So I'm using product categories like this. So I have 5 product categories: handkerchief, towels, soaps, detergents, and sanitizers. And then I have sales for these sections, right? So now this is again I have entered manually, but whatever data you have in form of arrays or lists can be used here, right? Actually, this sanitizer sales should be more. I will just switch sanitizers to detergents or soaps. Yeah, because just seeing the current scenario. So fine. Similarly, I'm using the figure .plt.figure for using my area, and just to again tell you that you can use the fixed size. I think it goes like this. Fixed size is equal to something like this for giving your for increasing your area. So see now the pie chart is huge, kind of quite huge. So fixed size parameter you can use. 10 and 20 are inches. But don't use is the normal pie chart size. So right, I'm using the sales and the products lists here, right? So and then these two are similar for every graph. You have to first create the figure and then add axis. This is different for the pie chart. So I'm using ax.py, or whatever object I use to create the axis is again used to create the pie chart. So I'm calling the pie function, and I'm assigning the sales first. Okay, so you give the percentages directly. So this is again in percentages. So I have made sure the sum of this is 100. So I'll just assign this sales list as the first parameter, and this I'll say labels is equal to, now labels is equal to, and I'm giving this list as products. So this is how I get these labels. Okay, towel, soap, detergent, sanitizer, handkerchief. I because I told labels is equal to products. Now this products list is getting passed to labels. So that is how these labels are passed. And I'm using this auto PCT, which is again a parameter. So you have to use these parameters as they are, as you can see in the screen, because this is syntax, right? Semantics. You can, it should be exactly how you see it. Okay. So then I'm using this format. So this is how to say how can I tell you how what is the use of this is basically after whatever you see after the decimal point is basically the number of digits you are going to see in your pie charts, right? So now it is 2.2. So now you are seeing 2 digits. If I make it 3, I'm going to see 3 digits here. So right now I have assigned everything as integers, not floats. So everything will be .000. Okay, so this is basically the format. So any questions here? A very simple pie chart. Try to run it parallelly and see if you the graph. So can we proceed to bar chart? If there are no doubts, you can say yes in your chat. Initially, as understood. Some more yeses. Right. Fine. Thank you very much, guys. So we'll move to the last section, which I uh, which I thought was important, is subplots, basically. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is basically use all the graphs which you saw previously, the histogram, the scatter, the box plot, and the pie chart, uh, to basically create a subplot or grids, right? So you may, I think I have updated the notebook after I sent it to you, so you can quickly kind of copy code, or I can maybe paste this section I have changed. So I can paste this in the chat box. Maybe this is not similar to what.
Kaushal, just I think you have missed the bar chart.
Okay. Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. So we'll first see bar charts and then we will move on to the subplots. Right now, bar charts are, again, I'm using the same, as you can see, the same data, same the sales and products. I'm creating the figure. I'm creating the axis. Okay, and I'm saying ax dot bar, and I'm saying products in the x-axis, sales in the y-axis. So whatever is the second is in the y-axis. I say x label as products, say y labels as sales, and then plt.grid, which you will see what it means, and plt.show. So show, you don't have you can't forget the show, right? Without this, you will not get actually anything in there. Okay. So this is what I get when I use the pie chart. Now these grids you see here are because of this plt.grid I used just before the show. Okay, so you see that if I use the grid, it becomes very easy to see if my bar is going certain a level above or something, right? You can, the correlation between values is easier if I use the grid. So grids are sometimes very useful like that. Okay. Uh, I have percentages here, but I can. This actually is not very meaningful, if you see, because percentages are for pie charts. This should be sales in figures. Okay, it should be in rupees, or it should be in units, number of units sold. Okay, so right. So now this becomes more meaningful. Percentages are meaningful for if you want to see percentages for each section of values, right? It is more meaningful to use the pie chart, but uh, for for the units, if you want to see units sold, sales in rupees or in numbers, you it's better to say bar chart, right? So that's how you basically kind of try to select between visuals, right? So based on what you need, you select the right chart you can use, right? So if you want to see percentages, pie chart. So if you want to see frequency distribution, you use the histogram. If you want to see relationship between two attributes like sales advertising, there are other attributes as well which vary, which are correlated to each other, which vary. If you increase one, the other increases. Visualize that kind of relationship, you use scatter graphs, right? Scatter plots. So based on what is your need and what relationship you are trying to explore, that kind of chart you basically select, and that is how you that is how this is called exploratory data analysis, because visually you are trying to see your data, you're trying to see relationships between attributes, right? You might better correlate with the words now, how we are seeing the relationships uh, after uh, after whatever we have covered till now, right? So this was the bar chart. So now we'll go to the grids. So there is not much change. What I have done actually is I have pasted all the codes from the previous figures here in this area where I want to create the subplots. Subplots is basically if you want to see uh, these four charts in one figure in one area, right? So I've written all the code here. What is different here is that I have used four axes. I've created four different axes: AX1, AX1, AX2, AX3, and I have used this function called add subplot. Okay, so I've used this function add subplot. Okay, so how do you understand this? Is basically if I use 2, it means 2 into 2. I'm actually using four images or four plots. I can show four plots in these combination of subplots. Okay, so one of the subplots I'll be using this axis AX. The other one I'm using AX1, AX2, and so on, right? And if you see the four subplots, the AX, uh, this object is going to show me the first one, the first chart, right? And then the second one. So you see this last value is changing, 1, 2, 3, 4. So based on these values, the plots will get placed in the figure in the area. So there will be totally four axes, and you will see four different charts appearing one after the other in four blocks. So the first one will actually come on the left side. Second one just besides this one on the right side of the first one. The third one will actually be below the first one, and the fourth one will be below the second one. So this is all same to what we have discussed till now. The first one is the same data. It is using a histogram. So you see, I'm using the AX object. So this will be printed first, right? The AX axis. Then for box plot, I'm using AX1. This is the same box plot. For the bar chart, I'm using AX2. Okay, and for the pie chart, I'm using AX3. Now you don't have to create different figures. You only create one figure here, and you plot four axes in this. Okay. So previously you might have seen we used dot. I've used dot figure everywhere because I wanted one figure per block, right? So whenever I run, I wanted space for that block, right? I'm using this figure and using this axis, right? But here my requirement is different. I'm using just one figure space, and I've given it a large area. I've given the width and height of this area uh, using the fixed size parameter, and then I'm creating the four axes. So I don't need to say dot figure for. I don't need to call the dot figure function every time now. I will just simply use four axes. Okay, assign those four axes their different charts. So using the first axis, I'm calling the hist function, histogram. In the second one, I'm calling box plot. Third one, I'm calling bar. Fourth one, I'm calling pi. Right? And after I assign the axis, I just simply say plt.show at the last. Okay. Just make sure in your notebooks that plt.show is at the last of all the charts after all the labels have been assigned. Right? I think the notebooks will be a little different. So just try to, I think this bar chart, maybe I have not placed it here. I've added the notebook after I sent, that is my guide. So you can just copy the bar chart code down here for the third axis, which I'm calling it as AX2, and try to run this block. Okay. So if I run this block, you see, I'm getting all the four charts together. Each chart is a subplot. Okay, and I'm getting all these in the same figure. This is my old figure where I'm getting all these four charts. So first I should, as I told, the first one should be histogram because I'm using AX for histogram. The second one should be box plot. The third one is bar, and the fourth one is pie chart. You can see these charts in the same order. Please try this. Subplots can be useful when you want chart the same figure. You want to rewrite code, you can write the code in the same block and just define axes according to what chart you want. Okay. So and then you will get all the charts in the same figure. That's how subplots. Remember to use the how we have created these axes. Okay, so you can try them. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Also, I think you guys were able to see the photograph, right? This was subplot. You can try the subplots parallelly. So you can ask the doubts that you have. Right. So we move on to we quickly move on to the Seaborn library. So now Seaborn is also one of those visualization libraries which is important and is widely used. I say widely used is also because you can use Seaborn library with data frames. Okay, so you will see in the coming classes that, and also in machine learning, that the data is generally it comes in form of Excel files or CSV files, right? So what we do basically when we try to read those CSV files is we use this pandas PD function, right? Dot read underscore CSV. So if the data is not in arrays or list format, generally if your data source is in Excel or CSV, you may want to create data frames like this one. So DF is a data frame. Whenever you use pandas pd.read underscore CSV, whatever data you are loading here, whatever file you are using to load your data, it will be stored in this data frame DF. Okay. So I think if you have the notebook right now, you can. I have also shared this Facebook underscore data file. I think you might have it. I'll maybe want to take time for you to maybe download it. If you can download it from WhatsApp now and place it in a folder, you can, because this is my folder. So you can place it in a folder and put the path here. Or if your Jupyter notebook is open, so for example, I'm using this. I have opened currently documents folder, right? So my file was not in the documents folder. This Facebook underscore data. That's why I had to give this path. So if you can download the file now, or if you have the file now directly, you can try to load it, and please check the path. So it will be loaded in this data frame df. Okay, so this has been loaded. So you can try to load the data frame as well parallelly. So if I say df.info, which we heard previously in the previous class, I will get all the column names which I have. If I have any null values, so we will see about that. We don't have to worry about that now. So if you can see overall there are 466 values in each column. Comment, like, share, interactions, type. These are the columns, and there are 2 null values in the share column, because generally there are 466 values, and there are 4 null values in interactions column. Okay, so let me know if you have come till this point. I think you might have till this point. Just see 2 examples of simply how you use the Seaborn library on data frames. So if you have come till this point, I will try to run this for you. So I am importing the Seaborn library as SNS. You can use any name which you want as an alias. So I'm using sns.displot. Now displot is similar to histogram in matplotlib. Okay, so it will give you the frequency distribution. Okay, it just named differently, displot. And what I'm doing is I am passing this. I want to see the frequency distribution of this column share. Okay, so I'm using the naming convention I'll be used to name, or sorry, to use a column. As you might have seen in the pandas class, df inside the column, I'm using the share column. Okay, so this is how I'm using the share column. And after the comma, this is something I'll show you. So if you run this, the histogram here, bars, simple bars, and you might see there have been like for 0 to 50 shares have been more than, like, they've been shared more than 70 or 80 times, right? So there is some value in between, like you can say 20. There are many posts, like there are nearly 80 posts uh, which have 20 shares. So something like that. You can see that, and if you see this KDE, this is nothing but early. You will, if you say this is as true, you will get a sinusoidal continuous way above your histogram as limits. Uh, if you use KDE as true. So again, a simple visual component. You don't need to worry about that much. But yeah, this is how you can see the histogram in Seaborn library, and you can use your data frame. I'm using my data frame column here. Okay. So might see if I use KD is equal to true, my scale is changing, right? So this can be sometimes very confusing. So you can, that's why I put it better as. If you remove this parameter, let us see what will happen. I'm also checking this for the first time. So right, for, so you better mention that, because by default it is it is true. Right? Let me say it as false. So are there any doubts here? This plot is similar to histogram. I'm using data frames here. I'm using this data frame column share. You will get the frequency distribution, the number of times, what number of shares, or what number of posts have got what number of shares. This is Facebook data, so we have posts which have likes, comments, shares, and how many interactions or how many times people have browsed through them, perform certain kind of activity on those posts. So we have that kind of data. So no questions. Can we move to the last section, box plot? And this is similar to the box plot we have in matplotlib. So you can try this. Hi, Dhanashri. Thank you. Others can also try. Parallelly, I will explain the box plot here. So it's the same function, dot box plot we are using with Seaborn, but a different variation you can use it Seaborn. So you will get basically what you'll get is you can use box plot for different categorical data as well. So now what I'm using it in the x-axis is type. So type is it can be a type of a post. So if in Facebook you can have photos or you can have textual posts, right? So you'll have that on the x-axis, both the categories, okay? And on the y-axis, you will get the number of likes you have uh, on the types of posts, okay? Types of posts. So why x and y is given like this is because this box plot has different syntax here. So I'm just giving x as type. So whatever I give here is in x-axis, y is in y-axis. So I want to see the number of likes for each type of post, right? And then I'm saying data is equal to df. Now df is data frame, right? Which we loaded our data into. So we just say data is equal to the data frame name, okay? And inside the data frame, you should have these columns like and type. Otherwise, this code will not work. Okay. So you see, I have the columns as like and type. Okay. So I give the column names as type as inside the y and x values or parameters, and I give the data frame name inside the data. Okay. So whatever column names you want to visualize, you give in x and y. So let's try to run this. Fine. So these are two box plot we get now because we have type on the x-axis. Now you have two types of data on Facebook, two types of posts basically. One is status update, and then which I told was text, can be textual or imagery, and then you have photos which are purely images, right? So as you can see, there are a lot more outliers in photos because I think photos have gotten way more likes than statuses, right? This is the information you are getting it from here. Photos get more likes than statuses, right? Statuses, there are lesser number of outliers, but overall distribution, you can see in distribution, apparently status is having the IQR range higher than little higher than photos, but the outliers in photos are huge. So more than 500 likes also there are likes which are more than 1500 also, right? statuses don't get that much likes. This is information you get from this box plot, right? And what you want to do to those outliers, we'll cover them later. Simple figure of how what is the distribution of your data, right? You can see values are from maybe 10, you can say here, or to 1700 or 1800. This is your range or your distribution. So this is your information you get from the box plot. Okay. So right, if you don't have any doubts here, we have come to an end to our Matplotlib and C1 library. Please try to do these assignment questions. Okay, this is based on both. You can both print the box plot, and you can create a box plot, and you can write your interpretation. What do you observe in the data? Okay, and similarly for the scatter plot as well. So it's simple questions where you try to see how the data is varying. Okay.